In today's video, we look into a case from 2021 of a man who wants to quit his job working as a driver for a gang. The gang's leader, Furious, had other ideas for the driver. There is only one exit from this gang. We look at the police investigation and trial. In the early hours of April 12, 2021, police started following a car being driven erratically. The Vauxhall Astra sped through junctions, and when police finally caught up to the car, it turned down a series of side roads, trying to shake the police. The car then turned into Brighton Road, Humberston, which was a dead end. The red Astra slammed on the brakes and skidded to a halt. The driver then bailed and ran off through the alley between the garages. Police gave chase on foot, and the driver of the Vauxhall Astra was caught and promptly detained. While sitting in the back of the police car, he refused to give his name. The plates were run over the police radio. The car was not stolen. It was taxed and insured and had an MOT. While the other police officer was looking in the vehicle, the chassis number was taken from the windscreen off the chassis number plate. It reported back that it was not a stolen car or on cloned plates. The police officer opened the boot, and inside, to the officer's shock, was a body covered in blood from wounds to the head. It was a man naked apart from his underwear. The officer checked the man. He was barely breathing. His face was a bloody pulp, and he was unresponsive. The man in the boot was taken to the hospital, and the driver of the Astra was arrested and taken to the local police station. The arrested man, who knew he was going to be fingerprinted, said his name was Yurak Khan. The fingerprints confirmed this. He was questioned, but every answer was no comment. There was footage recorded on Khan's phone, taken in Jesse Jackson Park. It showed a man from the boot of the Astra, injured, dressed only in his underwear. The owner of the car the Vauxhall Astra belonged to was the victim in the boot. His name was Anand Palmer. At the hospital, the victim, 47-year-old Anand Palmer, had extensive injuries. The doctors fought for hours and a bid to save his life, but he died later that day. A post-mortem examination later revealed he died as a result of significant injuries to his head and chest. The post-mortem report stated Anand Palmer suffered 44 injuries, including terrible brain damage, and died in hospital 5 hours later after arrival. Police now had a murder case on their hands. The murder investigation started with great momentum. Drug squad contacts found out that Yurak Khan was an addict, and numbers on his phone were from burner phones from a local drug gang. It showed from texts he had worked for these two men. The two men, as well as Yurak Khan, had extensive criminal history. The first series of arrests were drug dealers, 35-year-old Ronaldo Baptiste and 23-year-old Jeffrey Carew, who lived together in Marsh Close, Thurmaston. They both replied no comment to questioning. All three men, Ronaldo Baptiste, Jeffrey Carew and Yurak Khan, were remanded into custody. Forensics recovered prints from the Astra, but through police drug squad contacts, they managed to establish what actually happened. 47-year-old Anand Palmer had worked for Ronaldo Baptiste, who was the gang's leader. Jeffrey Carew was a very close second-in-command. Anand Palmer has worked as a courier and a driver. He was known as a goody-goody. He had a clean record, was sensible, stayed out of trouble, and was not violent or associated with criminals. He was calm, passive, and level-headed. Anand Palmer used to buy recreational drugs from Baptiste's dealers. He had fallen into the work after Baptiste asked him if he wanted a driving job. He was to collect money and parcels that maybe are a bit dark, but the money it paid was a nice distraction. Ronaldo Baptiste, Jeffrey Carew, loved the arrangement. Anand Palmer was not like the others who worked for them in the past. All his collections were prompt. He was never stopped or pulled over. never got into arguments with other criminals. He never bragged or blew his money. He was reliable, which is rare in this trade. He was paid in cash, and sometimes drugs, which he would sometimes use. Cracks started to happen in the business relationship a year in. Baptiste gave Anand Palmer cars to use to the deliveries and collections. One night on a collection, Anand Palmer was followed and was not sure if it was police or criminals out to rob him. He had in the car collections from that night, which was several £1,000s, and some parcels. He drove the Audi into a car park and went into a local pub to lose whoever was following him. When he went back outside to check, the people following him had gone, and so was his Audi. Baptiste was furious. He lost thousands in cash and product, and a car that was straight. He couldn't report it stolen, as it would attract attention to the fake company name it was in. Part of Baptiste's anger is, who was it? Who took the car? Was it police or a rival gang? Then the thought crept in, was the car really stolen? Anand Palmer was shaken up. He had a wake-up call that night, with Baptiste angry with him, and the thought of a rival gang or police watching him from that moment, it was too much, and he wanted to leave. He told Baptiste he ain't got the nerve for it anymore. He was told by Baptiste he can't leave. Not yet. Not until they support cover out to replace him. Palmer carried out the deliveries and collections. His drug use increased to cope with the stress. But a few months later he told Baptiste he wanted out again. And he can't wait any longer. Baptiste told him there is not an option, and he's going to carry on working for them and stop being so soft. A month later, Baptiste's £7,000 Rolex went missing. He was sure the person who took it was Palmer. Baptiste wanted to talk to Palmer about it, but Palmer went quiet for several days. His phone was off. He did not turn up for his collections. Baptiste was furious. He was sure Palmer took his Rolex and was behind the stolen car, and now was ignoring his calls. Palmer was naive. He didn't think of any of this going through Baptiste's head. He thought if he doesn't turn up for work, ignores them, then maybe they'd cut him loose and leave him alone. Meanwhile though, Baptiste was plotting. Shurat Khan, a prolific user, was recruited by Baptiste and paid in drugs. Baptiste and crew were waiting in a dark grey Vauxhall Mariva as Palmer and his girlfriend arrived in his red Astra at 1:45 AM to meet Khan. He got in and directed them to a car park area. As soon as they pulled up, crew began the attack, smashing the driver's side window. Mr. Palmer's girlfriend got out and crew briefly chased her, smashing a bottle on the back of her head, causing a cut. She ran off and took refuge in a nearby flat. Mr. Palmer was then attacked and shoved in the boot of his own car. Khan got in the car and drove in the convoy with Baptiste and crew in the Mariva to Nagel Road, adjacent to Jesse Jackson Park, in the Melton Road area of the city. CCTV footage showed Carew and Khan lifting injured Palmer from the Astra boot and carrying him into the park under the cover of darkness. No one witnessed what took place in the park. At 2:10 AM, Khan briefly left the scene before rejoining Baptiste and Carew. Baptiste and Carew then carried the unconscious and badly beaten victim like a sack and dumped him in the Astra boot before he was driven away by Khan. As both cars moved off towards Butland Road, passing police officers noticed the red Astra being driven at speed and erratic. The police took no notice of the Mariva that was 10 car lengths behind and was being driven normally. Khan was arrested after a brief chase. Officers searched the Astra and found Mr. Palmer completely unresponsive, having sustained multiple injuries, including fractures to his head and body, as well as internal bleeding. Baptiste and crew went to the flat in Moreton Walk, Northfields, where they recruited 35-year-old Patrick Moore. His job was to cycle around the area and report back. At Leicester Crown Court, Baptiste was given a minimum term of 25 years. Crew will have to serve at least 23 years. Shurat Khan, who was found guilty of manslaughter but was acquitted of murder, was sentenced to 12 years, of which he'll have to serve 2/3. In a statement read out by the prosecutor, the victim's daughter, who was 4 months pregnant when her father died, told of the distress and shock caused to their family, including her brother and grandparents, which had left them all heartbroken. She stated the acute distress of being in court to see graphic video footage of her dying father and seeing the horrific injuries caused to him by these monsters. She said the pain and suffering at the hands of these horrible men was unbearable. Adding the horrific details of Dad's last moments will haunt us for the rest of our lives. Anand Palmer had taken the job as a delivery man. The money distracted him from the dangers surrounding him. But one thing's for sure, it's a trade where you don't get to leave on your terms, and anyone rarely retires from. There are many ways it can end for you. A whole selection of desirables wanting to murder, rob or maim you. Or if you get lucky, you might get away from it all and stay at His Majesty's prison. Lights out 11. Good night.